The sound of desperate cries for help pulled Quinn Baxter from his peaceful nap on the warm sand. He bolted upright, his instincts immediately on high alert as his eyes scanned the shoreline. His 5-year-old daughter Emma was building a sandcastle nearby, safely away from the water's edge, but someone else was in danger. Through the glare of the afternoon sun, he spotted a woman's body floating face down in the water about 20 yards out, surrounded by panicked swimmers. "Emma, stay right here. Don't move," Quinn commanded, his voice firm but controlled to avoid scaring his daughter. He sprinted across the hot sand, his strong legs carrying him rapidly toward the commotion. Years of construction work had built his body for endurance, and the daily struggle of single fatherhood had taught him how to act decisively in emergencies. The moment Quinn hit the water, he dove through the incoming waves with powerful strokes. The crowd parted as he approached, their faces etched with horror and helplessness. When he reached the woman, her long dark hair was spread around her like a fan on the water's surface. With practiced movements from his lifeguard training years ago, Quinn flipped her over. Her face was pale, lips tinged blue. "Help me get her to shore," he shouted to a nearby swimmer. Together, they pulled the unconscious woman through the water until Quinn could stand. Then he lifted her in his arms, her body limp against his chest as he rushed toward the beach. He laid her carefully on the dry sand above the tide line. A small crowd had gathered, including his daughter who had disobeyed his instructions and now watched with wide, frightened eyes from a few yards away. "Someone call 911. Quinn yelled as he tilted the woman's head back, checking for breathing. Nothing. With no hesitation, he began chest compressions, counting under his breath, his mind focused solely on the rhythm of the life-saving procedure. "Come on, breathe," he muttered, before pinching her nose and delivering rescue breaths. Her lips were cold against his. 2 more breaths, then back to compressions. The woman was striking even in this state elegant features, expensive jewelry still adorning her wrists despite her swim. Quinn noticed none of it. All that mattered was saving her life. After what felt like an eternity but was likely less than a minute, the woman suddenly convulsed, water sputtering from her mouth as she coughed violently. Quinn quickly turned her onto her side, relief flooding through him as she began to breathe on her own. "That's it. You're okay," he said, his voice gentle as her eyes fluttered open, revealing stunning gray-blue irises clouded with confusion. "What happened?" she gasped between coughs. "You were drowning. Just rest now." "Help is coming," Quinn assured her, aware of the sound of sirens approaching in the distance. The woman's gaze focused on him, a strange mixture of vulnerability and intensity in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice raspy from the salt water. Emma had crept closer, her small hand clutching her beach bucket. "Daddy, did you save her like a superhero?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Quinn reached out to squeeze his daughter's hand. "I just helped someone who needed it, sweetie. That's what we do, right?" The woman's eyes shifted to Emma, and despite her weakened state, a gentle smile touched her lips. "Your daddy is definitely a hero," she said, before another coughing fit overtook her. The paramedics arrived moments later, efficiently taking over the woman's care. As they loaded her onto a stretcher, she reached out weakly, catching Quinn's wrist. "I'm Winter," she managed to say. "Winter Donovan, Quinn Baxter," he replied. "And this is my daughter, Emma." Winter's grip tightened momentarily. "I won't forget this, Quinn Baxter." As the ambulance doors closed, Quinn scooped Emma into his arms, kissing the top of her sandy head. "Come on, kiddo. I think that's enough excitement for one day." He had no way of knowing that his life had just irrevocably changed course, or that the woman he'd pulled from the ocean was worth billions and would soon turn his struggling world upside down. The following morning, Quinn woke before his alarm, his muscles aching from yesterday's rescue. The cramped one-bedroom apartment he shared with Emma felt especially confining as he shuffled to the kitchenette to start coffee. Construction jobs had been scarce lately, and the constant worry about making rent weighed heavily on his shoulders. He glanced at the calendar hanging on the refrigerator, circled dates marking bill due dates and Emma's upcoming school registration. At 34, Quinn had never imagined he'd be barely scraping by, raising a daughter alone after his wife Julie's death 3 years ago. "Daddy, is the lady okay?" Emma asked, appearing in her unicorn pajamas, her dark curls so like her mother's in a tangled mess around her sleepy face. Quinn smiled, lifting her onto a kitchen stool. "I'm sure she's fine, Em. The doctors will take good care of her." "She was pretty," Emma declared with the straightforward observation of a 5-year-old. "Even with all the water," Quinn chuckled. "I guess she was. Now cereal or toast?" Their morning routine proceeded as normal breakfast, getting Emma dressed, packing a lunch for her day at Mrs. Geller's, the elderly neighbor who watched Emma during summer break when Quinn could find work. He was just helping Emma with her shoes when a knock sounded at the door. Frowning, they rarely had visitors. Especially at 7:30 in the morning, Quinn opened the door to find a tall, stern-looking man in a crisp suit standing in the hallway. "Mr. Baxter, Quinn Baxter." The man's voice was professional, almost mechanical. Quinn tensed instinctively. "Yes." "My name is Harold Prescott. I represent Miss Winter Donovan." The man extended a business card with a corporate logo Quinn didn't recognize. "Miss Donovan would like to speak with you regarding yesterday's incident at Willow Bay Beach." Quinn hesitated, glancing back at Emma, who was watching curiously. "Look, I'm glad she's okay, but I'm about to take my daughter to child care and head to work." The man nodded. "Miss Donovan anticipated that. She's prepared to compensate you for your time." He handed Quinn an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000 made out to Quinn Baxter. This is too much," Quinn stammered, attempting to return the check. "I didn't save her for money." "Miss Donovan is aware of your character, Mr. Baxter. This is merely to offset any inconvenience. A car is waiting downstairs if you'd like to meet with her this morning. We can arrange for your daughter to be safely escorted to her caregiver." Quinn's pride warred with practicality. $5,000 would cover 3 months of rent. "I don't leave my daughter with strangers," he said firmly. "Of course, your daughter is welcome to accompany you. Miss Donovan specifically mentioned she'd be pleased to meet Emma properly." After a moment's consideration, Quinn nodded. "Let me make a call first." 10 minutes later, Quinn and Emma were settled in the back of a luxury sedan with tinted windows, heading toward the outskirts of the city. Emma bounced excitedly on the leather seat, while Quinn stared at the passing scenery, wondering what exactly he was getting himself into. The car eventually turned onto a private road that wound through carefully manicured grounds before stopping in front of a sprawling glass and stone mansion overlooking the ocean. "Wow," Emma gasped. "Is this where a princess lives?" The driver, who hadn't spoken during the journey, smiled at her through the rearview mirror. "Something like that, little miss." Inside, the house was a masterpiece of modern architecture, open spaces, floor-to-ceiling windows, and tasteful artwork that Quinn suspected cost more than his annual income. Harold led them through to a sunlit terrace where a woman sat at a glass table, her back to them as she gazed out at the ocean view. "Miss Donovan, Mr. Baxter and his daughter have arrived," Harold announced. When Winter turned, Quinn was struck by how different she looked from the pale, desperate woman he'd pulled from the water. Her dark hair was elegantly styled, her complexion glowing with health. She wore a simple white dress that somehow managed to look both casual and expensive. "Quinn," she said, her voice warm as she stood. "And Emma, thank you both for coming." Emma tugged at Quinn's hand. "Daddy, it's the lady from the beach," she whispered, not quite grasping the concept of an indoor voice. Winter laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "Yes, I'm the lady your daddy saved." She approached them, extending her hand first to Quinn, then crouching slightly to offer it to Emma. "It's very nice to see you when I'm not coughing up seawater." Quinn shook her hand, noticing how her slender fingers felt against his calloused palm. "You're looking much better. Thanks to you," she gestured toward the table. "Please sit. Harold, could you bring the package for Emma, and some juice, perhaps?" As they settled at the table, Quinn felt acutely aware of his worn jeans and faded t-shirt in these luxurious surroundings. Winter seemed to sense his discomfort. "I wanted to thank you properly," she said. "The doctors told me that without your immediate intervention, I might not have survived." "Anyone would have done the same," Quinn replied. Winter's eyebrow rose slightly. "That's not true, and we both know it. Several people were closer than you, yet you were the one who acted." She studied him for a moment. "You have training?" "I was a lifeguard through college, nothing fancy." "Daddy saves everybody," Emma chimed in proudly. "He even saved a kitty from a tree once." Winter smiled at her. "I'm not surprised. Your daddy seems like a natural hero." Harold returned with a glass of orange juice for Emma and a wrapped package, which Winter handed to the girl. "A small thank you for sharing your daddy with me yesterday." Emma's eyes widened as she unwrapped a beautiful illustrated book of fairy tales. "Thank you," she exclaimed, immediately opening it to examine the colorful pictures. While Emma was distracted, Winter leaned toward Quinn. "I had my assistant do some research last night." "You're a construction worker," Quinn stiffened slightly. "When there's work. I do carpentry, electrical, whatever's available. And you're raising Emma alone. Her mother died 3 years ago. Car accident." Winter's expression softened. "I'm sorry for your loss." Quinn nodded, uncomfortable with her sympathy and the direction of the conversation. "Miss Donovan, Winter, please." "Winter, I appreciate the check, but it really wasn't necessary. I didn't do anything special." "You saved my life, Quinn." She held his gaze steadily. "That's extraordinary by any measure." She paused, then continued. "I also understand you've been struggling to find consistent work." Quinn's pride flared. "I manage." Winter smiled slightly. "I'm sure you do. You strike me as a man who would move mountains for his daughter." She took a sip from her water glass. "As it happens, I'm renovating several properties along the coast. My contractor mentioned needing skilled workers, particularly someone versatile with experience in multiple trades." Quinn frowned. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity. The pay is excellent, the hours regular, and it would last at least through the end of the year." She shrugged elegantly. "Of course, if you're not interested." "Why are you doing this?" Quinn asked bluntly. Winter considered him for a moment. "Because I can, because you need it." "Because I owe you my life." Her gaze flickered to Emma, who was absorbed in her new book. "And because I think you deserve a break." Before Quinn could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Geller asking when he'd be dropping Emma off. Reality intruded on this surreal morning. "I should go. I need to get Emma to child care." "Of course." Winter stood smoothly. "Harold will give you the details about the job. The position starts Monday if you want it." She smiled at Emma. "Enjoy your book, sweetheart." As they walked back through the house, Quinn felt torn. The job sounded perfect, exactly what he needed, but he resented feeling like a charity case. Still, Emma's needs had to come first. His pride wasn't worth her security. "Mr. Baxter," Winter called as they reached the door. He turned to see her standing in the hallway. "I meant what I said. This is an opportunity, not charity. You'd be doing me a favor by accepting." Something in her expression, a hint of vulnerability beneath the polished exterior, made Quinn reconsider. Maybe this wasn't just about him. "I'll think about it," he said finally. Winter smiled. "That's all I ask." As the car pulled away from the mansion, Emma clutched her new book to her chest. "I like her," she declared. "She's nice." Quinn gazed back at the house, wondering about the woman who lived there. "Yeah, she seems to be." What he couldn't know was that Winter was watching their departure from her office window. Her own thoughts, equally conflicted about the man who had saved her life, and was now, unexpectedly, beginning to capture her interest. Monday morning found Quinn at the beachfront property Winter had mentioned, a sprawling estate undergoing extensive renovations. The foreman, a gruff but fair man named Ray, seemed genuinely pleased to have Quinn join the crew. "Miss Donovan spoke highly of your skills," Ray said as he showed Quinn around. "We're behind schedule on several custom elements. If you're half as good as she claims, you'll be a godsend." Quinn felt a mixture of pride and discomfort at Winter's apparent praise. "I'll do my best." The work was challenging but satisfying: intricate carpentry, detailed finish work, and creative problem-solving that utilized Quinn's diverse skills. The pay was indeed excellent, nearly double his usual rate, and the other workers were skilled professionals who took pride in their craftsmanship. By the end of the first week, Quinn had settled into a comfortable routine. Emma enjoyed her days with Mrs. Geller, thrilled that her father now came home at the same time every day, no longer exhausted from scrambling between multiple jobs. They even began having dinner together at the small table in their apartment, a simple pleasure that had become rare during the lean months. Quinn hadn't seen Winter since their meeting at her home. He'd half expected her to appear at the work site, but apparently she managed her projects from a distance. He told himself the twinge of disappointment he felt was merely curiosity about his unusual benefactor. That changed on Friday afternoon as Quinn was finishing a custom bookshelf in what would become the property's library. He heard the distinctive click of heels on hardwood and turned to find Winter standing in the doorway, dressed in a sleek business suit that highlighted her slender figure. "I'm impressed," she said, approaching to examine his work. "Ray tells me you're exceeding expectations." Quinn straightened, suddenly aware of the sawdust covering his clothes. "It's good work. I appreciate the opportunity." Winter ran her fingers along the intricate pattern he'd carved into the shelf's edge. "This is beautiful. You're an artist, Quinn." "Just a craftsman," he corrected, though her praise warmed him. "False modesty doesn't suit you," she smiled, her gray-blue eyes meeting his. "How's Emma adjusting to your new schedule?" The question surprised him. "She's happy. We've had dinner together every night this week. That might not sound like much, but it sounds like everything," Winter said softly. She hesitated, then added, "I'm hosting a small gathering tomorrow at my beach house, the one you visited. Nothing formal, just a few friends enjoying the sunset. You and Emma are welcome to join us." Quinn blinked, caught off guard. "I don't think we'd fit in with your crowd." "You might be surprised." Winter's expression was unreadable. "Besides, Emma mentioned loving the ocean and my beach is private. She could swim safely." She did say that. Quinn hadn't realized Emma and Winter had spoken that much during their brief meeting. She's a charming conversationalist. Winter's smile softened her elegant features. "Around 3 o'clock. No pressure, of course." After she left, Quinn returned to his work, but found himself distracted by the invitation. It would be good for Emma to enjoy a private beach. And if he were honest with himself, he was curious about Winter Donovan beyond their unusual connection. Saturday afternoon, after much deliberation, Quinn found himself driving toward Winter's mansion, Emma chattering excitedly in the backseat about seeing the Princess Lady again. He'd nearly talked himself out of going several times, but Emma's enthusiasm had ultimately won out. The same silent driver who'd transported them before met them at the entrance and directed them toward the back of the property, where steps led down to a pristine private beach. Quinn could see a small gathering of perhaps 10 people near a beautifully arranged seating area on the sand. "You came." Winter appeared at the top of the steps, looking completely different from the polished businesswoman of yesterday. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she wore a simple sundress with bare feet. Something about this more casual version of Winter made Quinn's chest tighten unexpectedly. Emma was excited about the beach, he explained. "Just Emma," Winter teased, her eyes sparkling. Before Quinn could respond, Emma bounded forward. "Hi, Winter, I brought my swimming suit," she announced, pointing to her beach bag. "Perfect. We have a protected cove that's perfect for swimming." Winter knelt to Emma's level. "And I have someone I think you'd like to meet." My nephew Liam is here. He's 7 and loves building sand castles. Emma's eyes widened. Can I meet him now? Winter laughed and stood, offering her hand to Emma. Let's go introduce you. Quinn, there are refreshments on the terrace. Everyone's very casual, so don't worry. As Quinn watched Winter lead his daughter down to the beach, he was struck by how natural she was with Emma, nothing like the intimidating billionaire he'd expected. With a deep breath, he followed them toward the gathering. The afternoon unfolded with surprising ease. Winter's friends were an eclectic mix: an author, a marine biologist, a retired judge and his wife, and Winter's sister Valerie with her husband and son. None of them treated Quinn like an outsider, and conversation flowed naturally around topics from local environmental initiatives to the best fishing spots along the coast. Quinn found himself relaxing as he watched Emma play with Liam at the water's edge, supervised by Winter, who had rolled up her sundress to wade in the shallow waves with the children. She caught him watching and waved, her smile uninhibited in a way he hadn't seen before. She's different when she's not working, said a voice beside him. Quinn turned to find Winter's sister Valerie holding out a glass of lemonade. Winter, I mean, most people only see the CEO version. Quinn accepted the drink. I wouldn't know. We haven't exactly had normal circumstances for getting acquainted, Valerie laughed. Pulling someone from the ocean does skip a few steps in the relationship progression. She studied him for a moment. She talks about you, you know. Quinn raised an eyebrow. Does she? Don't look so surprised. You saved her life. That tends to make an impression. Valerie's expression grew more serious. Winter doesn't let many people see the real her. The business world isn't kind to women who show vulnerability. Before Quinn could respond, a squeal of delight from Emma caught his attention. Winter had helped the children find a starfish in the shallows and was kneeling between them, explaining something that had both kids captivated. She's good with Emma, Quinn observed. She's always loved children, Valerie replied. Ironic, considering everyone in the business world thinks she's some ice queen who sacrificed a personal life for success. She gave Quinn a meaningful look. But then, most people don't really know her at all. As the afternoon progressed into evening, the gathering shifted to the terrace for dinner. Emma, exhausted from hours of play, curled up on a cushioned lounge chair nearby, falling asleep despite the adult conversation around her. She's had quite a day, Winter said softly, appearing beside Quinn with a light throw blanket which she gently draped over Emma's sleeping form. Thank you for including her, Quinn said. She'll be talking about this for weeks. Winter smiled. It was entirely selfish on my part. Children's laughter improves any gathering. She hesitated. Would you like to walk on the beach? The sunset will be spectacular in about 10 minutes. Quinn glanced at Emma and Winter added, Valerie will keep an eye on her. We won't go far. The beach was bathed in golden light as they walked along the water's edge, a comfortable silence between them. Quinn had removed his shoes, enjoying the feel of sand between his toes, a simple pleasure he rarely indulged. Thank you for coming today, Winter finally said. I wasn't sure you would. Neither was I, Quinn admitted. I'm still not entirely sure why you invited us. Winter stopped walking, turning to face the ocean as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. Do I need a reason beyond enjoying your company? People like you don't usually socialize with people like me. Winter's expression flickered with something like hurt before she composed herself. And what kind of person am I, Quinn? He gestured vaguely. Successful, wealthy, connected. And you think those things define me? She met his gaze directly. Just as being a construction worker defines you. Quinn felt properly chastised. That's fair, I'm sorry. Winter's expression softened. No, I understand. The world puts us in categories. She looked out at the ocean, now painted in fiery oranges and reds. You know, I nearly died in that water, not just physically, though that was real enough. But something else happened when I was drowning. Quinn remained silent, sensing she needed to continue. I realized I'd built an empire, but not a life. She wrapped her arms around herself. I have wealth, influence, respect in my industry. But when I was fighting for breath, none of that mattered. All I could think about was how few people would truly miss me, not the CEO, not the Donovan fortune, but me. The vulnerability in her voice touched something in Quinn. Without thinking, he reached out, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. I think the person I've met today is definitely worth missing. Winter turned to him, the sunset illuminating her face with a warm glow. For a moment, Quinn thought she might step closer, but instead she smiled slightly. That might be the nicest thing anyone's said to me in years. The intensity of the moment was broken by the sound of Valerie calling from the terrace. Winter, Emma's asking for her dad. Quinn dropped his hand reluctantly. Duty calls. As they walked back toward the house, Winter asked, "Would you and Emma like to come to dinner next Friday? Just the three of us. I make a decent pasta." Quinn raised an eyebrow. "You cook," Winter laughed. Another revelation about the mysterious billionaire. "Yes, I cook." "Not often, but I'm told my carbonara is quite good." Quinn found himself smiling. "We'd like that." As he carried a sleepy Emma to the car later that evening, Quinn realized he was looking forward to Friday with an anticipation that had nothing to do with gratitude or obligation. Winter Donovan was becoming more than the woman he'd saved. She was becoming someone he wanted to know better, much better. The following Friday evening marked the beginning of what would become a pattern over the next several weeks. Quinn and Emma would join Winter for dinner, sometimes at her home, occasionally at small local restaurants she favored, once even for a picnic on her private beach. Emma delighted in these outings, her natural affection for Winter growing with each encounter. Quinn's feelings were evolving too, in ways that both excited and alarmed him. Winter was unlike anyone he'd ever known, brilliant and driven in business, yet surprisingly down to earth in private. She listened intently when he spoke about his dreams of one day having his own custom furniture business, offering practical suggestions rather than empty encouragement. During one dinner at her home, after Emma had fallen asleep on the plush sofa in Winter's living room, the conversation had turned personal. "Tell me about Julie," Winter said softly, refilling Quinn's glass of wine. "If you're comfortable sharing, that is." Quinn rarely spoke about his late wife, but something about Winter's gentle inquiry made it feel natural. "We met in college. She was studying education, planned to be a teacher. She was vibrant, always smiling, always finding the bright side of everything." Winter nodded, her expression attentive as she settled beside him on the adjacent sofa chair. When Emma was born, it was like watching Julie's joy multiply. She was born to be a mother. Quinn swallowed hard, memories washing over him. The accident happened on a Tuesday, ordinary day. She was driving to the grocery store. Drunk driver ran a red light. Winter reached across the space between them, her hand covering his. "I'm so sorry, Quinn." For a long time, I was angry, at the driver, at the world, even at Julie sometimes for leaving us. He glanced toward Emma's sleeping form. "But Emma needed me to be more than angry. She needed me to be a father, so I learned to put one foot in front of the other." "You've done an amazing job with her," Winter said. "She's wonderful." Quinn squeezed Winter's hand. "What about you?" "You've never mentioned past relationships." Winter withdrew her hand slowly, a shadow crossing her features. "There haven't been many worth mentioning. When you're a woman with money, it complicates things. Men either want something from you or they're intimidated." "That sounds lonely," Quinn observed. "It can be." Winter's smile held a hint of sadness. "But I've been so focused on building my company, expanding my father's legacy, that I convinced myself I didn't have time for relationships. And now," Winter met his gaze directly, "now I'm wondering if I've been hiding behind work to avoid risking my heart." The honesty of her admission hung in the air between them. Quinn felt drawn to her in that moment, not because of her wealth or beauty, but because of the courage it took to be vulnerable. "Risk is terrifying," he acknowledged. "After Julie, I never thought I'd want to open myself up to that kind of potential pain again. And now," Winter echoed his question, her voice barely above a whisper. Quinn held her gaze. Now I'm starting to think some risks might be worth taking. The moment stretched between them, electric with possibility, until Emma stirred on the sofa, breaking the spell. The conversation shifted to lighter topics, but something had changed. An acknowledgement had been made, though neither was quite ready to act on it. As July turned to August, Quinn's work at Winter's beachfront property was nearing completion. The project had been extended twice, but eventually, even the most intricate custom work would be finished. Quinn found himself increasingly concerned about what would happen when the job ended. Would his connection to Winter fade? The thought troubled him more than he wanted to admit. He was installing the final decorative molding in the master suite when Winter appeared in the doorway. She'd been absent from the site for nearly a week, traveling for business, according to Ray. "It's looking perfect," she said, surveying his work. Quinn smiled, pleased to see her despite his professional demeanor. "Just finishing the last details. You've been away." "Singapore." Tedious negotiations that could have been handled by video conference, but some clients insist on looking you in the eye. She approached, examining the intricate pattern he'd created. "You've transformed this space." "It's easy when you have quality materials and clear vision," Quinn replied, putting down his tools. "The project's almost complete." Winter nodded, a flicker of something crossing her features. "Ray mentioned that. I've been thinking about what comes next." Quinn's heart rate increased slightly. "Oh, I have several other properties that could benefit from your skills," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "But I hesitate to offer because I don't want you to feel like a charity case." Quinn finished for her. Winter sighed. "Like I'm overstepping." "Our relationship has evolved beyond employer and employee, Quinn. I value our friendship too much to jeopardize it." Friendship. The word simultaneously warmed and disappointed him. "I appreciate that, and the work has been great, but eventually I need to stand on my own." Winter nodded thoughtfully. "What if you could do both? Stand on your own while still working on projects connected to my companies? What did you have in mind?" "I've been impressed by your custom pieces, the library shelving, the built-in cabinetry, the decorative elements throughout this property. My interior design team has mentioned repeatedly how exceptional your craftsmanship is." Quinn waited, uncertain where she was heading. "I own several buildings in the arts district downtown. There's a vacant workshop space in one of them. It has good light, proper ventilation, even a small storefront area." Winter spoke rapidly, as if concerned he might interrupt. "It would be perfect for a custom furniture business." Quinn stared at her. "Winter, before you say no," she continued hurriedly, "this isn't charity, it's business. My properties need tenants and my projects need quality craftsmanship. We could structure a lease with favorable terms, with an agreement that you'd fulfill a certain number of commissions for my properties annually." The idea was appealing, frighteningly so. Quinn had dreamed of having his own shop for years, but the startup costs had always been prohibitive. "I'd need to think about it," he said finally. "This is a big step." Winter nodded, visibly relieved he hadn't rejected the idea outright. "Of course, there's no rush." She hesitated, then added, "Emma mentioned you're taking her to the county fair this weekend." The change of subject caught Quinn off guard. "Yes, she's been talking about it for weeks. The rides, the cotton candy. I've never been to a county fair," Winter admitted, looking almost embarrassed. Quinn raised his eyebrows. "Never, not even as a kid." She shook her head. "My childhood was structured. Private schools, summer in Europe, winter in Aspen." "Sounds horrible," Quinn teased gently. Winter laughed. "I know, poor little rich girl, but I've always wondered about cotton candy and Ferris wheels." Quinn recognized the opening for what it was. "Would you like to join us? Fair warning, it's crowded, noisy, and everything is deep-fried." "That sounds perfect," Winter said, her smile brightening her entire face. "If you're sure I wouldn't be intruding." "Emma would be thrilled. She talks about you constantly." "Just Emma?" Winter asked, echoing her question from weeks ago at the beach gathering. This time, Quinn answered honestly. No, not just Emma. The county fair was everything Winter had never experienced: chaotic, colorful, loud, and utterly charming. She had arrived dressed in what Quinn assumed was her idea of casual attire: designer jeans and a simple blouse that probably cost more than his monthly rent, but her excitement was as genuine as Emma's. You have to try a funnel cake, Emma insisted, tugging Winter toward a food stand. It's the best thing ever. Winter gamely joined the line, insisting on treating them despite Quinn's protests. When the powdered sugar-covered fried dough arrived, Winter's expression of delight at the first bite made Quinn laugh out loud. It's ridiculous how good this is, she admitted, licking sugar from her fingers in a gesture so unconsciously sensual that Quinn had to look away. They made their way through the fairgrounds, Winter experiencing each classic attraction with the enthusiasm of someone making up for lost time. She tried games of chance, discovering she had an unexpected talent for ring toss, sampled corn dogs, how have I lived without these, and insisted on riding the carousel alongside Emma. As the afternoon progressed, Quinn found himself watching Winter as much as participating. She had shed the poised businesswoman persona completely, laughing unreservedly when a farm animal in the petting zoo nibbled at her designer jeans, cheering wildly when Emma won a small stuffed penguin at the balloon dart game. The Ferris wheel is next, Emma announced as the sun began to set. Can we go on it, Daddy, please? The massive wheel dominated the skyline of the fairgrounds, strung with colorful lights that were beginning to glow in the dusk. It's the perfect time, Winter agreed. Sunset from the top will be beautiful. As they waited in line, Emma chattered about the day's adventures, clutching her prize penguin. When they reached the front, the operator looked at their group and made a quick calculation. 3 passengers. We'll need to balance the car. Mind if the little lady rides with another family. Got a mom and daughter right here who could use a third. Before Quinn could protest, Emma had already volunteered. I can ride with them. I'm not scared. The operator looked to Quinn for confirmation. She'll be in the car right behind you, sir. You can see her the whole time. Quinn knelt to Emma's level. You sure, kiddo? Emma nodded solemnly. I'm big enough, and you and Winter can ride together. The innocent matchmaking in his daughter's eyes was almost comical. Quinn straightened up. All right, but wave to us the whole time. As Emma climbed into her car with a friendly-looking mother and daughter about her age, Quinn and Winter settled into the car behind them. The wheel began to move, lifting them slowly upward. Your daughter is fearless, Winter observed as they rose above the fairgrounds. And surprisingly perceptive, Quinn glanced at her. What do you mean? Winter smiled slightly. I think she deliberately arranged for us to ride alone together. She's 5. I don't think she's that calculating. Not calculating, intuitive. Winter's gaze was warm. She senses that I like her father very much. The directness of her statement caught Quinn off guard. Before he could respond, the wheel stopped with their car at the top, providing a panoramic view of the fairgrounds and the ocean beyond, painted in spectacular sunset colors. I've been wanting to tell you something, Winter said quietly. That day on the beach, when you saved me, it wasn't just a random accident. Quinn frowned. What do you mean? Winter turned to face him fully. I grew up on the water. I'm an excellent swimmer. But that day, I'd received some difficult news. My father's medical tests had come back positive for early-stage Parkinson's. He's all the family I have besides Valerie. Quinn listened, sensing her need to explain. I went swimming to clear my head, but I was distracted, careless. I swam too far out, got caught in a current I would normally have recognized and avoided. She shook her head. When I started struggling, my first thought was how ironic to build all this and die so stupidly. Winter, you don't have to. I do, though, she insisted gently. Because what happened next changed everything. I saw you running across the beach, this stranger determined to save someone he didn't know. And in that moment, fighting for breath, I thought, that's what matters. That impulse to help, to connect. The Ferris wheel remained stopped at the peak, as if giving them this suspended moment. When I woke up on the beach with you leaning over me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, like I'd been given a second chance. Not just at life, but at living. Quinn reached for her hand, overwhelmed by her honesty. I'm glad I was there. So am I. Winter's eyes shimmered in the fading light, because I might never have known you otherwise, never known Emma. Never experienced funnel cake or known what it feels like to want to be with someone simply because they make the world brighter just by existing in it. The wheel began to move again, but neither noticed. Quinn leaned closer, drawn by something stronger than gravity. Winter, he said softly, I'm going to kiss you now, if that's okay. Her answer was to close the distance between them herself. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, a question being asked and answered. Then it deepened, becoming something more certain, more powerful. Quinn's hand rose to cup her cheek, feeling the softness of her skin against his work-roughened palm. When they parted, Winter's eyes remained closed for a moment, as if savoring the sensation. When she opened them, Quinn saw something there that mirrored his own feelings: wonder, desire, and a touch of fear at the magnitude of what was happening between them. That was worth waiting for, she whispered. From the car behind them came the sound of Emma's delighted giggling. Daddy kissed Winter, she announced loudly enough for nearby cars to hear. Quinn laughed, resting his forehead against Winter's. So much for privacy. Winter smiled, her hand still in his. I don't mind if you don't. As the wheel completed its circuit and they disembarked, Emma ran to them, bouncing with excitement. Are you and Winter going to be girlfriend and boyfriend now? She asked Quinn with the bluntness of childhood. Quinn exchanged a glance with Winter, who nodded slightly. We might be heading in that direction, he answered honestly. Emma pumped her fist in triumph. I knew it. Can we have ice cream to celebrate? Winter laughed, kneeling to Emma's level. Ice cream sounds like the perfect celebration. As they walked toward the ice cream stand, Winter's hand found Quinn's again, their fingers intertwining naturally. Quinn felt an unfamiliar lightness in his chest, the sensation of possibilities opening before him that he'd thought were forever closed. The following weeks brought changes both subtle and profound. Winter and Quinn settled into a relationship that progressed with careful consideration of Emma's feelings. Their time together included Emma for most outings, trips to the aquarium, picnics at Winter's private beach, movie nights where Emma inevitably fell asleep halfway through, allowing Quinn and Winter precious time alone. Winter's business workshop proposal had evolved into concrete plans. Quinn had visited the space and found it perfect for his needs better than he could have hoped for. They had negotiated terms that allowed him to maintain his independence while benefiting from Winter's connections and resources. It still feels too good to be true, Quinn admitted one evening as they sat on Winter's terrace, watching Emma play with Liam, who had become a regular companion during family gatherings. Having my own shop has been a dream for so long. You've earned it, Winter replied, her hand resting comfortably in his. Your talent deserves the right showcase. Quinn turned to study her profile in the fading light. It's not just the workshop, it's everything. You, Emma, being so happy, this new life that seemed impossible 2 months ago. Winter met his gaze. Are you worried it won't last, aren't you? He asked honestly. We come from different worlds, Winter. We did, she corrected gently. But I think we're creating a new one together. She hesitated. Unless you're having doubts, Quinn squeezed her hand. Not about you. Never about you. Just about whether I can fit into your life long term, your business associates, your social obligations. Quinn Baxter, Winter said, turning to face him fully. Do you think I care what anyone thinks about who I love? The word hung in the air between them. They hadn't said it yet, though both had felt it growing stronger with each passing day. Is that what this is? Quinn asked softly. Love. Winter's expression was open, vulnerable in a way few people ever saw. I think you know it is, at least for me. Quinn reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering. I never expected to feel this way again after Julie. I thought that part of my life was over. And now, Winter's voice was barely audible. Now I know I love you, Quinn said simply. And it terrifies me and exhilarates me in equal measure. Winter's smile was radiant as she leaned forward to kiss him, a kiss that held promise and certainty. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. We'll figure out the rest together. Winter, Quinn, look. Emma's voice interrupted the moment as she and Liam approached, carrying a hermit crab in a small bucket. Can we keep him as a pet? The moment shifted easily from romance to family life, a transition that felt increasingly natural as the weeks passed. Later that night, after Emma had fallen asleep in the guest room that was gradually accumulating her belongings at Winter's house, Quinn found himself standing in Winter's kitchen, watching her make tea. Move in with me, Winter said suddenly, turning to face him. Both of you. Quinn blinked, caught off guard. Winter, that's a big step. I know, but Emma already has her own room here. You're here most evenings and weekends. The commute to your new workshop would be 10 minutes instead of 40. She approached him, resting her hands on his chest. And I sleep better when you're beside me. The admission was sweetly honest, making Quinn smile despite his reservations. What about Emma's school? The fall term starts in 3 weeks. The local school here is excellent. I've checked. Winter's preparation for this conversation was apparent. And she'd have access to a safe beach, a proper yard to play in. You've thought this through, Quinn observed, wrapping his arms around her waist. I have, but I understand if you think it's too soon. Winter's expression was earnest. I don't want to rush you. Quinn considered the offer, weighing practical concerns against the pull of his heart. Let me talk to Emma first. This affects her as much as us. Winter nodded. Of course. But, Quinn added, drawing her closer, if I were making the decision just for myself, my answer would be yes. The following morning, over breakfast at Winter's house, Quinn broached the subject with Emma. Her response was immediate and enthusiastic. We get to live here, with Winter, forever. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Well, we'd try it and see how it goes, Quinn explained cautiously. It would mean changing schools, making new friends. Emma considered this briefly, then nodded solemnly. That's okay. I'll miss Mrs. Jeller, but Liam goes to the school here, right? So I'd already have one friend. The simplicity of her reasoning made both adults smile. And Winter would be like, my second mom? Emma asked with the directness that continually surprised them. Quinn glanced at Winter, whose expression flickered with emotion. Winter would be Winter, he answered carefully. She cares about you very much, but no one can replace your mom. I know that, Emma said with the impatience of explaining something obvious. Mom is in heaven, but Winter is here and she makes us happy, so it's different but still good. Winter knelt beside Emma's chair, her eyes suspiciously bright. That's exactly right, sweetheart, different but good. And I promise to always do my very best to make both you and your dad happy. Emma wrapped her arms around Winter's neck. So we're going to be a family. Over Emma's head, Winter's eyes met Quinn's, a question and an answer passing between them. Yes, Quinn said, his voice steady despite the emotion tightening his chest. We're going to be a family. The move happened gradually over the following week. Quinn gave notice on their apartment, and with Winter's help, sorted through their belongings, keeping sentimental items, upgrading necessities, donating what they no longer needed. Throughout the process, Winter was careful to ensure Emma's treasures made the transition, creating a space in the mansion that felt like home rather than a temporary accommodation. By the time September arrived, Quinn and Emma were fully settled in Winter's home, now their home. Quinn's workshop was operational, with several commission pieces already in progress. Emma had started at her new school, quickly making friends beyond Liam, thriving in the enriched environment. The transition wasn't without challenges. Quinn sometimes felt out of place at business functions where Winter's presence was required. Winter occasionally struggled to understand the practical realities of parenting a 5-year-old. But these moments were balanced by the joy of building a life together, Winter helping Emma with an art project, Quinn teaching Winter how to fish off the private dock. Family dinners where laughter flowed freely. One evening in late September, Quinn was working late in his workshop, finishing a commission piece for one of Winter's corporate clients. The space had quickly become his sanctuary, filled with the scents of wood and varnish, the tools of his craft arranged precisely as he preferred. He was so absorbed in his work that he didn't hear Winter enter until she spoke. "It's beautiful." Quinn looked up to see her admiring the ornate conference table he'd been crafting from reclaimed oak. "Thanks. It's coming together nicely." Winter approached, running her fingers along the polished surface. "You've been working long hours lately. I want to establish myself properly, prove this wasn't just nepotism," Winter suggested with a slight smile. "I think the quality of your work speaks for itself." Quinn set down his tools, pulling off his protective glasses. "How was your meeting with the Japanese investors? Productive? Exhausting?" Winter leaned against the table. "I missed you." "You were only gone for 3 days," Quinn teased, drawing her into his arms. 3 days too long. Winter relaxed against him, her typical corporate poise melting away. "Emma told me she has a presentation tomorrow, something about sea turtles." Quinn nodded, touched that Winter had immediately asked about Emma despite her own demanding day. "She's been practicing all week." "She's nervous but excited." "I'd like to be there if that's okay." Winter's request was hesitant. "I cleared my morning schedule, but I didn't want to overstep." Quinn kissed her gently. "Your family now, remember? Emma would be thrilled to have you there." Winter's smile was radiant. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into her pocket. She withdrew a small velvet box. Quinn's heart rate accelerated. "Winter, it's not what you think," she said quickly, opening the box to reveal a key. "Well, not exactly." Quinn looked at the key, confused. "I already have keys to the house." "This isn't for the house. It's for the lighthouse property." Quinn's confusion deepened. "The abandoned one on the North Point, the one you mentioned, was a historic preservation headache," Winter nodded. "I finally got approval to renovate it." "It's going to need someone with exceptional craftsmanship skills, someone who understands how to balance modern functionality with historical integrity." Understanding dawned. "You want me to renovate it?" "I want us to renovate it, together." Winter's expression was earnest. "It would be our project, your expertise, my resources, and when it's finished." "When it's finished," Quinn prompted. "When it's finished, I thought it might make a perfect home for us." Winter's voice softened. "Something we built together from the foundation up, a new beginning." The magnitude of what she was offering struck Quinn deeply. Not just a project, but a symbol of their commitment to building a future together. "Winter Donovan, are you asking me to build our dream home with you?" "I am." Her gray-blue eyes held his steadily. "And maybe when it's finished." "When it's finished?" Quinn asked again, his heart full. Winter's smile was both shy and certain. "When it's finished, maybe that would be a good time to consider making our family official, in every way." Quinn understood her meaning completely. He pulled her closer, overwhelmed by the love he felt for this extraordinary woman who had entered his life through such unusual circumstances. "I think that sounds like a perfect plan." He whispered against her lips before kissing her deeply, sealing their agreement with something more binding than signatures or legal documents, the promise of a shared future, built on love, trust, and the family they were creating together. The lighthouse renovation began in October, with Quinn overseeing the project while continuing his furniture commissions. Winter's involvement was equally hands-on, despite her busy corporate schedule. She arranged her meetings to allow for regular site visits, often bringing Emma after school to watch the progress and contribute her own 5-year-old design ideas. "I think my room should have stars on the ceiling," Emma declared one afternoon as they toured the partially renovated structure. "Real ones that glow in the dark." "I think that can be arranged," Winter assured her, exchanging an amused glance with Quinn. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying. Quinn found himself pushing the boundaries of his craftsmanship, creating custom elements that blended historical accuracy with modern comfort. Winter's vision complemented his practical approach, resulting in solutions neither would have developed alone. As winter approached, the renovation timeline extended due to unexpected structural issues that needed addressing. Quinn worried about the delays, but Winter remained unfazed. "Good things take time," she said simply. "We're building something to last generations." The holidays brought a new dimension to their evolving family life. Winter, who had typically treated Christmas as a perfunctory obligation, embraced the season with unexpected enthusiasm. She enlisted Emma's help decorating the mansion, resulting in an eclectic mix of elegant designer elements and handmade paper chains. "I never realized how much fun this could be," Winter admitted one evening as they sat before the fireplace, admiring the towering tree they had decorated together. "My childhood Christmases were formal affairs, designer decorations, caterers, obligation gifts." Quinn wrapped his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Emma's mother always made the holidays magical, even when we had little money. I've tried to continue that tradition." Winter leaned her head against him. "You've succeeded, and now you've given me the gift of experiencing it properly for the first time." Christmas morning brought the chaos and joy of Emma's excitement, followed by a day of relaxed family togetherness that included Valerie, her husband, and Liam. Winter had conspired with Quinn to create a special gift for Emma, a handcrafted dollhouse that Quinn had built with a replica of their future lighthouse home. "It looks just like the real one will," Emma exclaimed, examining the miniature rooms with delight. "And look," Winter showed her, opening a hidden compartment in the base. "There's something special inside." Emma reached in and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Opening it, she found a delicate silver necklace with 3 interlocking circles. "It's pretty," Winter knelt beside her. "These 3 circles represent you, your dad, and me, connected forever." Emma's expression grew serious as she understood the significance. Without a word, she threw her arms around Winter's neck in a fierce hug. Winter held her close, meeting Quinn's gaze over Emma's head, her eyes shimmering with emotion. Later that night, after Emma had finally succumbed to exhaustion and fallen asleep surrounded by new toys, Quinn found Winter on the terrace, wrapped in a blanket against the winter chill as she gazed at the ocean. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, joining her. Winter smiled, opening her blanket to include him in its warmth. "I was thinking about last Christmas. I spent it alone in my office, working on quarterly projections. And this year I understand what people mean when they talk about the magic of Christmas." She turned to face him. "It's not the decorations or the gifts. It's this family, belonging, love." Quinn brushed a strand of hair from her face, marveling at how this sophisticated, powerful woman could still reveal such touching vulnerability. "I have something for you, one last gift." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small hand-carved wooden box. Winter took it, running her fingers over the intricate pattern etched into its surface, waves and stars intertwined in an eternal design. "It's beautiful," she murmured. "Open it," Quinn encouraged softly. Inside, nestled on a velvet cushion, was a ring, not a traditional diamond engagement ring, but a band of polished wood inlaid with a thin stream of platinum and tiny sapphires the color of Winter's eyes. "Quinn," Winter breathed, her eyes wide. "I know we talked about waiting until the lighthouse is finished," Quinn said, taking her hand. "But some things shouldn't wait. I love you, Winter. You've changed my life, Emma's life, in ways I never imagined possible. You've shown me that second chances at happiness aren't just fairy tales." Winter's eyes filled with tears as Quinn continued. "I made this ring from wood salvaged from the lighthouse, its past becoming our future." He removed the ring from its box. "Winter Donovan, will you marry me?" "Not someday, not when everything is perfect, but now imperfectly, completely, with all the challenges and joy that come with building a life together." Winter's answer was a whispered yes, before she pulled him into a kiss that held all the promise of their future passionate, tender, and absolutely certain. Spring arrived with renewed energy for the lighthouse renovation, now with added significance as their future marital home. The wedding was planned for early summer, a small, intimate ceremony on the beach below the lighthouse, with just close friends and family. Emma took her role as flower girl with utmost seriousness, practicing her petal-tossing technique daily. "I'm responsible for setting the tone," she informed them solemnly, repeating a phrase she'd obviously heard from Valerie, who had happily taken on wedding planning duties. As the lighthouse neared completion, Quinn found himself working alongside Winter more frequently, both of them eager to finish the space that would become their family home. On a warm April evening, they were alone at the site, Quinn installing the custom kitchen cabinetry he'd crafted while Winter finalized the lighting design. "I think we might actually make our June deadline," Winter remarked, reviewing the project timeline on her tablet. Quinn stepped back to admire his handiwork. Just in time for the wedding, Winter set down her tablet, approaching to wrap her arms around him from behind. "Does it feel real to you yet, that in 2 months we'll be married?" Quinn turned in her embrace. "Sometimes. Other times it feels like I might wake up back in my old apartment, discovering this was all an impossible dream." "Not impossible," Winter corrected, rising on tiptoes to kiss him. "Just extraordinarily unlikely. A drowning billionaire rescued by the one man who could make her realize what she was really missing in life." Quinn laughed softly. "When you put it that way, it sounds like a movie no one would believe." "Truth is stranger than fiction," Winter quoted, then grew more serious. "I got the final paperwork today." Quinn knew immediately what she meant. They had been discussing adoption. Winter legally adopting Emma as her daughter, making their family official in every sense. "And everything's in order. Once we're married, we can file immediately." Winter's expression was a mixture of joy and nervousness. "Do you think Emma understands what it means? She understands that you'll be her mother in the eyes of the law, just as you already are in her heart." Quinn brushed a kiss against Winter's forehead. "She's been calling you Mom for weeks now when she talks to her friends at school." Winter's eyes widened. "She has. She still calls me Winter to my face." "She's waiting for permission," Quinn explained gently. "She doesn't want to hurt your feelings or mine." Understanding dawned on Winter's face. "We should talk to her together." "We will, tomorrow." Quinn pulled her closer. "Right now, I just want to enjoy this moment with my almost wife in our almost finished home." Winter smiled, leaning into his embrace. "I like the sound of that." The following evening, after dinner at their current home, Quinn and Winter sat Emma down for the conversation they'd been planning. Emma looked between them with curious eyes, sensing the importance of the moment. "Sweetie, you know that Winter and I are getting married soon," Quinn began. Emma nodded. "In 53 days, I'm counting." Winter smiled, reaching for Emma's hand. "When that happens, I'll officially become part of your family, and there's something else we want to do if it's okay with you." Emma waited expectantly. "I would like to adopt you," Winter continued carefully. "That means legally I would be your mother, not replacing your birth mother," she added quickly, "but adding to your family." "I know what adoption is," Emma said matter-of-factly. "Mia in my class is adopted. She has 2 moms now." Quinn exchanged an amused glance with Winter. "That's right. And how would you feel about Winter becoming your second mom? Legally?" Emma considered this with surprising seriousness for a 5-year-old. "Would I call you Mom then?" she asked Winter directly. Winter's voice was gentle. "You could if you wanted to, or you could keep calling me Winter. Whatever feels right to you." Emma was quiet for a moment, then asked, "Would my first mom mind?" Quinn felt his heart constrict at the question. He had always been careful to keep Julie's memory alive for Emma, with photos throughout their home and stories about the mother she barely remembered. "I think," he said carefully, "that your mom would be very happy knowing you have someone who loves you as much as Winter does." Emma nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. She turned to Winter. I think I want to call you Mom. Is that okay? Winter's eyes filled with tears. That's more than okay, sweetheart. That would make me happier than you can imagine. Emma climbed into Winter's lap, wrapping her small arms around her neck. I love you, Mom, she whispered, testing the word. Winter held her close, her eyes meeting Quinn's over Emma's head. The love and gratitude in her expression was everything Quinn had ever hoped to see, the final piece falling into place for the family they had built together from such unlikely beginnings. The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, as if nature itself approved of their union. The lighthouse stood completed on the promontory, its fresh paint gleaming in the morning sun. Below, on the private beach, chairs had been arranged in a semicircle facing the ocean, decorated with simple arrangements of wildflowers and sea grass. Quinn stood at the water's edge with the officiant, his best friend Marcus beside him as best man. Only 30 guests were in attendance, a mixture of Winter's closest business associates who had become friends, Quinn's colleagues from the construction industry, and the small circle of people who had supported them both through their journey together. When the music began, a string quartet playing a melody Winter had selected, all eyes turned toward the path leading from the lighthouse. Valerie appeared first, elegant in a simple blue dress that matched the ocean behind them. Then came Emma, taking her flower girl duties with utmost seriousness, carefully placing petals along the sand pathway, and then Winter appeared, and Quinn felt his breath catch. She wore not the formal gown many might have expected, but a flowing dress of ivory silk that moved with the ocean breeze, her hair adorned with a crown of small white flowers. She carried a bouquet of local wildflowers and sea lavender, tied with a ribbon that had belonged to Quinn's mother. As Winter walked toward him, Quinn was transported back to that first desperate moment on the beach, the woman he'd pulled from the ocean now walking toward him with love and certainty, about to become his wife. The symmetry was not lost on him. What began with one life-changing moment was culminating in another. When Winter reached him, Quinn took her hands in his. You're breathtaking, he whispered. So are you, she replied, her eyes taking in his simple linen suit. Ready to make this official. The ceremony was brief but deeply personal. They had written their own vows, words that spoke of unexpected beginnings, second chances, and the family they had created together. Quinn, Winter said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes, you saved my life in more ways than one. You showed me that success isn't measured in acquisitions, but in connections. That wealth isn't about what you have, but who you love. I promise to cherish every day of this second chance we've been given, to love Emma as my own, and to build a life with you filled with the joy and purpose I never knew I was missing. Quinn squeezed her hands, his own voice rough with emotion as he spoke. Winter, you came into our lives unexpectedly, like a miracle we didn't know we needed. You've brought light and possibility back into my world when I thought those doors were closed forever. I promise to stand beside you through whatever challenges come our way, to support your dreams as you've supported mine, and to remind you every day that you are loved for exactly who you are, not for what you possess or achieve, but for the remarkable woman who has become the heart of our family. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was met with cheers and applause. Emma rushed forward to embrace them both, creating a family hug that became the favorite photograph from the day, the three of them laughing, connected, complete. The reception was held on the lighthouse grounds, with tables arranged under strings of lights that would illuminate as evening fell. Dinner was served family style, with platters passed between guests, creating the warm, intimate atmosphere they had wanted. As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the gathering, Quinn stood to propose a toast. To my wife, he said, still marveling at the word, who proves that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the greatest joys. And to all of you who have supported us on this journey, thank you for being part of our story. Winter rose beside him, adding her own words. And to second chances in all their forms, may we never take them for granted. Later, as they shared their first dance as husband and wife, Winter leaned close to whisper in Quinn's ear. "I have a surprise for you." "Another one?" Quinn asked, smiling. "The lighthouse, the honeymoon in Italy, the expanded workshop space, what else could there possibly be?" Winter's eyes sparkled with excitement. "This one's different. I was going to wait until after the honeymoon to tell you, but I don't think I can." Something in her expression made Quinn's heart quicken. "Winter, what is it?" She placed her hand over his where it rested at her waist, then slowly moved it lower, pressing it gently against her stomach. "We're going to need that extra bedroom we designed after all." Quinn stared at her, understanding dawning. "Are you saying?" Winter nodded, tears of joy shimmering in her eyes. "Emma's going to be a big sister. I'm pregnant." In that moment, surrounded by friends and family, holding his wife in his arms with the knowledge of new life growing within her, Quinn felt the fullness of how far they had come. From a desperate rescue on a public beach to this private celebration of their expanding family, their journey had been as unexpected as it was perfect. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "All of you," he added, his hand still resting protectively over their unborn child. As the stars appeared above them, and the lighthouse beam began its faithful sweep across the water, Quinn and Winter Baxter danced beneath the lights, surrounded by the family they had found, built, and now expanded, living proof that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with a single act of courage. 1 year later, Quinn stood on the deck of their lighthouse home, cradling his 3-month-old son against his shoulder. The baby, named James after Winter's father, was finally asleep after a fussy afternoon, his small weight a comforting presence against Quinn's chest. From this vantage point, Quinn could see Emma on the beach below, helping Winter collect shells along the shoreline. At 6, nearly 7, Emma had embraced her role as big sister with characteristic enthusiasm, already planning all the things she would teach James when he was big enough to do fun stuff. The past year had brought changes and challenges. Winter had scaled back her direct involvement in her companies during her pregnancy, delegating more responsibility to trusted executives while focusing on family. The transition hadn't been seamless. Winter's workaholic tendencies didn't disappear overnight, but the arrival of James had shifted her priorities in ways even she hadn't anticipated. Quinn's custom furniture business had flourished beyond his expectations, with a waiting list of clients seeking his unique pieces. He had hired 2 apprentices and was considering expanding further, balancing growth with his determination to remain hands-on with the craftsmanship that defined his work. Their family life had found its rhythm: breakfasts together before Emma went to school, evenings spent in the comfortable living space Quinn had designed with Winter's input, weekends exploring the coastline or entertaining friends in their home, contemplating the universe. Winter's voice interrupted his thoughts as she climbed the steps to the deck, Emma following with her bucket of shells. "Just our universe," Quinn replied, smiling as she leaned in to kiss him, then peered at their sleeping son. "Finally surrendered, did he?" Winter brushed a gentle finger across James's dark hair, so like her own. "Daddy has the magic touch," Emma declared, setting her shell collection on the deck table for sorting. "Mom, can we have the blue one in my bathroom?" "Of course," Winter agreed, moving to help Emma organize her treasures. Quinn watched them together, his daughter, and the woman who had so seamlessly become her second mother. The adoption had been finalized shortly after their wedding, creating legal recognition for the bond that had formed naturally between them. Emma now moved effortlessly between calling Winter Mom and using her name, depending on the context, a flexibility that somehow worked perfectly for their blended family. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the deck, Quinn reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a desperate moment on a public beach to this peaceful evening in their home, their path had been neither straight nor predictable, but every twist had led them exactly where they were meant to be. Winter caught his gaze, seeming to read his thoughts as she so often did. She moved to stand beside him, slipping her arm around his waist as they both looked out at the ocean, the same ocean that had nearly claimed her life, and, in doing so, had brought them together. "No regrets?" Quinn asked softly, knowing the answer but wanting to hear it anyway. Winter leaned her head against his shoulder, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby. "Only that it took nearly drowning for me to find you." "Well," Quinn said, pressing a kiss to her temple, "some lessons come harder than others." Winter laughed quietly. "Indeed. Though I think I've finally learned the most important one." "Which is?" She turned to face him fully, her eyes reflecting the last golden rays of sunlight. "That rescue comes in many forms. You pulled me from the water, but you also showed me what it means to truly live to love without reservation, to build something meaningful together." Quinn shifted James to his other shoulder, freeing an arm to pull Winter closer. "We rescued each other, I think." "We did," Winter agreed. "And we keep doing it, every day." As Emma called them to admire her carefully arranged shell collection, Quinn felt the perfect completeness of this moment, his daughter excited and thriving, his infant son sleeping trustingly against him, his extraordinary wife by his side. From unlikely beginnings had grown the most authentic happiness he had ever known, proof that sometimes the most remarkable love stories begin with a simple act of courage. When a struggling father runs toward danger rather than away, and in saving a stranger's life, ultimately saves his own heart. And as the lighthouse beam began its evening sweep across the darkening water, Quinn knew with absolute certainty that some rescues, the most important ones, continued every day, in the quiet moments of connection, understanding, and love that formed the foundation of the family they had built together.